word midwife means to be with women. That's what it means. And as a midwife, I have had the incredible honor of being with thousands of women at their births as they brought new life into the world. I always felt really, really, really lucky that I was given, I get to call this my job, because I always say I would do this all the time for free. But since October 7th, my job has taken on a very, very different meaning. I remember October 7th like it was yesterday. It was actually the first holiday of all the Jewish holidays that I was not at work. This year, it was my turn to work Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot, and I was home. And I remember being with my family. I live in Efrat, and I have 4 great, fantastic boys. And I remember we had sirens and being in the manmad with them and all those different things, and having to explain to them what's going on when I wasn't even sure myself. And I remember thinking about all the pregnant women and all the women who are pregnant now or in labor. Because as a midwife, it doesn't matter if you're home or in the hospital or at the mall, you think about all the women who are pregnant and in labor all the time, or at the park. You become the, international, you become the person that everyone will ask questions for. So right away, I thought about all the women, what they were experiencing now in the hospital, or the ones who were down south, what that must have been like to be pregnant, to be in the mamad, to be giving labor. And women are unbelievably, and this is no offense to any of the men in the room, but women are incredible. Their ability to rise above and do what they have to do when they have to is an unbelievable thing. And throughout my time since the war began, I have seen woman after woman deal with unbelievable circumstances. And I feel so blessed that I have been able to be part of that. The word birth in Hebrew is Leda. Leda means Liyad Hashem, or next to God. And I always felt you feel God's presence when any baby comes into the world, but even more so during this time. I work mostly nights, so every morning they would release the names of the soldiers who took us away, who were protecting us. And I would go to work and see these new souls come into the world. And you can't help but think, like, it's an unbelievable privilege that I've had throughout this time period. There are people who were seeing just horror and horrible things, and soldiers who day in and day out were standing on the front lines with their guns defending us. And I had the privilege of seeing life being brought in, and it gave me strength. And I told every single woman who gave birth during this time that she's the person who's giving strength to the entire country by bringing another life into the world and another soul into the world. And also, all the soldiers know these lives are the ones that they're fighting for. I wanted to share a few stories that kind of stick out with you guys. I worked on October 8th, which is the day after everything happened. And I got to work, and the way it works here in the delivery room is we have like a triage area, and then we have the delivery room. So some days we work in the triage area, some days in the delivery room. I didn't know what to expect when I got to the hospital. There was a lot of unknown, you hear a lot of things. And when I came, the women, as you could imagine, were very stressed and very nervous and very overwhelmed, because they're not only in labor, which for any of you who have been in labor or have had children, it could be stressful for some people. I like to believe that labor is good and it's great and it all works out, but there are people who find contractions and labor stressful. So they had that going on, and then there was this whole other layer of things going on as to, okay, there's a war, but we don't really know what's going on, because the first week we were all collecting bits of information. And I'm sure throughout your tour here and your time here, there are people who know a lot more than me in terms of the military and things like that, and gave you a much better description. But I remember I had a woman, and she looked so nervous. And I believe as a midwife, my job is to sometimes be the medical care provider, to sometimes be your friend, to sometimes be your mother, and depending on who you are, that's the hat I put on. And sometimes I'm supposed to be a shadow on the wall, and you're not supposed to hear me or see me. But this woman looked particularly distressed and particularly nervous. So I sat down next to her and I said, what's going on? What's happening? Is there something I could help you with? And she just blurted out in tears. She's like, I can't give birth today. I can't have a baby today. There's a war. What am I going to tell my baby about? Sorry, I thought I'd be able to do this without crying. What am I going to tell my baby about the day he was born? And I said, I paused for a second, because in my mind I thought, like, what am I to tell you? What I don't know what to say or what to do. And I thought, and I said to her, your baby is the hope, is the belief that everything's going to be okay. And your baby's role is to provide that for you, for me, and for everybody else. And I believe this, and I always believed this as a midwife, but even more so during this time period. Every baby is born exactly at the moment that they're supposed to be born, under the circumstances that they're supposed to be born in. Whether it's the women who come into this hospital giving birth in the ambulance, which happens, or the woman who needs an emergency C-section, or the woman who has a water birth and everything's calm. And it's the exact way that baby is supposed to come. And this is the way your baby's supposed to come. And I don't know why, and I don't know when it's going to be different, but you're the person who's gonna help all of us. And she really calmed down. And then that was the message I took with myself throughout every single day in the war, because women were nervous and women were scared. We didn't always have the answers, and sometimes there were sirens here in the beginning, during, one thing that I said to every woman, which I will continue to say to every woman, is I'm here. If there's a siren, if there's no siren, if there's this, I'm not leaving. We're here, and you'll have your baby, and we'll have your baby together. The women have been incredible. And I feel very, very blessed. I work with an incredible staff of midwives that all 140 of them are standing here with me, who are, and I have incredible nursing management who has really given us the opportunity to support all these women. Another story that I thought about, it was the second week of the war, and a woman had a planned C-section, which happens here all the time. It is not. And she had called her husband. Her husband was called up into reserves, but he had told them, My wife is having a planned C-section. It helps when you can plan when the birth is going to be. I need to go on that day. And the army said no problem. And he came in full uniform with his gun and all this other artillery. We had gotten used to having soldiers around. Also, I live in Efrat. That's not a foreign thing. But when it was time for the husband to go into the C-section, we all looked at each other and laughed because we said, well, what do we, like, you have to get dressed in a sterile gown and you have to, and what do we do with the gun? And we're all looking at each other as if, like, well, there's no protocol for this, and we didn't discuss this before because we didn't, who would ever thought that this was the plan? So as I love this about living in Israel, that it doesn't matter what happens, we work it out, right? There's a solution. And me and another OR nurse, like, wrapped the gun in the sterile room. And I wish he didn't want me to take the picture, but I really wish he would have let me, because just so you could have seen it. And we got creative. And then the next father who had to come with his gun, we already knew what to do. It wasn't even, and we shared it on the WhatsApp groups, and we said, okay, when this happens, this is what you do. And only in Israel, I grew up in New York, and I moved here when I was 21. And I have always felt that no matter what happens in this country, we'll work it out. And that really was the feeling. And then he came, and his daughter was born, and everything was beautiful. Another story that really, really stuck out for me was a lot of the women whose husbands are in the army, they're not even in reserves, they're in the army regularly, are newly married couples, pregnant with their first baby, which is challenging enough within of itself. And then you have your husband at war, and you just got married maybe 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, and this whole whirlwind of how you thought you were going to have your first baby completely changed. And I had this young woman, she was 19 years old, which when I think of myself at 19, if I had to have a baby, I don't know if I would have been able to rise to the occasion. And this woman was absolutely incredible. She came in, she was in labor, her mom was with her, and she came, and we got to the place that we knew not to ask if your husband is coming, because you don't want to make it worse, but we asked, is anyone else joining us? That's like a good way to kind of get the feel of what's going on, because you don't know who's in the army, who's injured, and I also believe as a midwife, it's my job to let you share with me what you want to share when you want to share it. And I've held that rule very true my entire career as a midwife, but even more so during this time. So the woman said to me, she's like, yeah, my husband, he's in Gaza, but I spoke to him and he's on his way. As if that was such a normal sentence to say. And I was like, okay, great. And you would think that, like, I wouldn't, but every time I heard that sentence, oh, he's in Gaza, but he's on his way, that you're just, praying that he gets out safely and nothing happens on the way, and that the car ride is okay, and you're like, okay, I just want to see him here. And the truth is, every time I saw a soldier walk into the delivery room, I felt like it was like seeing like one of my sons. Like I was like, oh thank gosh, you're good. And so when he walked in, they hadn't seen each other for, I think she said 6 weeks. They hadn't seen each other. And this was the first time. So I quickly left because I don't need to be part of their reunions, give them their privacy. But then this woman had packed her husband a bag. She was in labor, she had contractions, and she had the forethought to pack her husband a bag. so that he would have his soap that he likes and his this that he likes, and she's like, oh, he's probably gonna be hungry. She brought his favorite snacks. She made cookies. I was like, who is this woman? And she's amazing, but the ability to think about somebody else when you're in labor is an incredible thing. And she, and he showered in the delivery room, and we gave him towels, and he used his soap, but it was incredible the way that every woman whose husband, every woman whose husband was in the army are just as much fighters, if not more, and their ability to rise to the occasion and hold down things has been absolutely incredible. And I'm very grateful to Shaarei Tzedek and to my colleagues, the midwives I worked with, that they gave me the opportunity to support these women. And I'm also really grateful to the women for every minute of bravery that they had to birth their babies, and birth their babies with joy, like real joy and courage. And I'm so grateful to each and every one of them that they trusted me and allowed me the privilege to be part of it. So any woman you see who just had a baby, a high five is definitely not enough. But really gets an enormous it's always a huge feat to have a baby, and you always deserve a huge applaud, but even more so during this time period. Women have gone above and beyond. I wanted to share one more story, just to give a little credit to the husbands who have also done really well. I was the charge nurse in the triage area. So we oftentimes get phone calls about different patients coming in from ambulances. Like, it's not an unusual thing to get a phone call about a patient coming in. But we got a phone call from someone from the Army. I don't even remember what his title was. I've learned that because I didn't grow up here, there's a lot of Army titles that I don't fully understand, and I usually just ask my sons, like, how important is this person, or how, and they will start telling me a whole speech, like, he's in charge of this, and all those things. So we got a phone call from someone that said one of my soldiers' wife is on her way in. My soldier can't come to the phone now. He can't call her, he can't talk to her, but she's coming in, and it's her 4th birth. And he's not coming. At this point, he doesn't even know. He doesn't even know that she's coming into labor. But we spoke about it because he knew that it was, her due date was soon. So he asked me that if I'm not available, can you call for me? And the fact that this person in the Army even remembered with all the other things that I'm sure he is in charge of and doing, and he called and he said the husband really wants the wife to know that he called and he's looking out for her, and also that, can she please have an epidural right away? Because the last birth she missed it, and it really was too hard. Like, she really doesn't want that. So can you make sure that happens? And I was ready to wake up the head anesthesiologist in the middle of the night, and Professor Yoskovich would be like, you have to come right now, because but no, we had but then when she came in, I told her, and the woman was so touched by the fact is a phone call. Like, that's all it was. Like, it wasn't, and she was so touched, and right away she went in, she got an epidural, and not that if your husband doesn't call, we don't give you an epidural. But she got one, and she had a beautiful birth. But the whole time, I kept thinking when she gave birth, I was like, her husband doesn't even know yet. That she, like, I know that he had a son before he has a son, which is like a crazy reality that we're living in. He came 2 days after, and it was actually very nice. He came to find me, to thank me that she got an epidural. He was like, I didn't do it. But it's just, this is what life has been like. And I think that this is a time period that every single midwife will remember forever. And the faces of the women that we have taken care of during this time period and their names, I think we will remember forever. And not that every woman before this wasn't important and wasn't significant, but it's made an impression. And thank you for coming. If anyone has any questions, I can't promise I know the answer, but if you have any questions. Make you all want to have a baby now?
What's the most difficult birth you've had? You've been witness to?
In my career? What's your definition of a difficult birth?
Who said that?
I'm already done with my. For now, 4.
Should I tell her?
She was involved with one of mine.
It was. Only if you have nice things to say. Difficult. What's a difficult? Like, I've had times where I've prayed really hard that everything's okay. I've had times where moms don't feel good and we have to take care of them. I've had times where babies come out and they don't feel good and we have to do CPR and things like that. Things happen in birth, unfortunately. Thank God to the technology and all the things that we have here at Shaarei Tzedek. They happen really, really, really not often. I could count the number of times on my hand I've had real emergencies, and the numbers here have gone up. I don't know if you've heard there were a lot of births in the past. I've delivered a lot of babies. Things happen.
Have you ever had it where the mother's passed away and the baby's been born?
I don't know, thank God, and I hope I never. It's very, very rare nowadays for mothers to pass away in birth because the primary cause of women passing away in birth is postpartum hemorrhage. The other complications that happen are very, very rare. And now, because we have medicine for postpartum hemorrhage, very good medicine and blood transfusions, it happens a lot less.
Thank you. What happened to a friend of yours?
Okay. I mean, I don't know her medical history.
It's okay.
And I'm sorry for your loss.
I'm just curious, what made you decide to move from New York and make a lead to New York?
How much did I do?
High level.
No, it's not. I always, growing up, I grew up in a house that was very Zionistic, and I always knew I didn't want to live in New York. That I knew. I was also never your typical girl from New York, who was continuing the path that all the other New York girls were necessarily doing, who were going to Stern College or going to, I knew I wasn't going to do that. And then I came here for the year, and I decided came and I was like, well, I'm obviously living here, and it was just a question of how and when. And my parents, like every other New York parent, were like, you're out of your mind. You're coming home. It's really nice come home. So I came home after a year. I came home after a year, and I did the thing. I went to Queens College, like many New York Jewish girls. You know, I tried following the going with the grain, as they say. And then I met my husband when I was actually visiting here, and he had already moved here and was living here. And I met my husband, and then we decided to get married, and then we moved together a week and a half after our wedding. Yeah, with 2 suitcases and not really a plan at all, if I'm being honest. But it worked out. We worked it out. So that's, yeah. But I always connected to being in Israel more than I connected being in New York. And I always felt that I wanted to raise my kids here. And my husband kind of, I guess, gave me the push or gave me the opportunity, or don't tell him. And I gave him credit.
He's also from New York?
He's from New York also, but he has been here since he was 18. He came for the year to yeshiva and kind of never left.
So I think we should tell them, obviously we are the largest maternity ward in
Shaarei. Oh yeah,
yes.
definitely.
And how many babies
we
you
are,
have?
yes, so we are the largest maternity ward in, I think, Israel and in this side of the world.
In the Western world.
Oh, thank you. In the Western world.
Yeah.
We also, but it's not about really being the largest.
No,
because I'm very proud of the level of midwifery care that we're able to provide, which sometimes when there's so much, it could make you nervous.
So in this example, we birthed 28,000 babies, was it last year?
Last year. So we have.
So compare that to Mount Sinai, who 40 or like. So we're pretty.
So I'll give you like an example.
Giving her the info.
In numbers, I'm not like a number person.
No.
So no, it's really, I'm everywhere. But I'll give you an example, like other hospitals in like New York and things like that. We can have anywhere here between. All right, this is not working. We can have between 50 to 60 to 70 babies born a day. Whereas other places can have 10. But what comes with the busyness is also a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge and a lot of ability to give women the opportunity to have the birth that they want in the way that they want. Like we have a really low C-section rate for women, really low complications rate, because it comes with the experience.
Last question, yes, because thank you. Sorry. Thank you. I know what you're doing just now. Thank you.
So how does it work here? Is there a midwife present for every single birth?
Yeah.
And
so,
sorry, no, you go ahead.
No, finish your question.
Because in Canada, the way it works is I can either choose to have a midwife or a doctor. I haven't had kids in a while, but I think it still works that way. So here, you have the option of both being present and one being the more dominant person, and then the other one steps back. Is that how it works?
So the way it works in general are the midwives deliver the babies here.
Okay.
In general. However, it's Israel, so there's always a however, and you can choose the option to hire a private doctor for a birth.
Okay.
When I'm at your delivery, I'm not private. It's for the hospital, and it's what happens in socialized medicine, and you come. But the midwives, like I'm trained to assess you throughout your labor, to deliver your baby, to assess your baby, to deliver your placenta, to stitch you, and to send if you need, and to assess your bleeding after and send you on your way. Midwives are fully trained to do the entire picture. In not all hospitals is it important for the hospital staff to be given the opportunity, the midwives, to learn all these necessary skills. But Shaarei Tzedek, and it's one of the reasons it's really gives them a lot of credit. Like they gave all the midwives training to do stitches and all the training to assess all these things, and so they can really manage a woman's care.
Okay.
If a woman does go to a C-section, then a doctor does it, and I go in with the doctor. I don't scrub in, but I take care of the baby after. And if there's any complication throughout the labor that I feel as a midwife I need help, or the doctor feels that it needs to be intervened, then the doctor gets called in.
Okay.
But in your delivery, you could not see the doctor the entire time if
Okay.
everything's loaded.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.